for one, adding and subtracting rational numbers, you want to make sure that you have your Desmos calculator handy. So this is on desmos.com/scientific. Okay, so make sure you have that. Desmos.com/ I can't do a slash because that makes it dividing. And then the scientific calculator. Okay, so that's what I'm going to be using during this video, and I'm going to show you how to do fractions on it, and decimals, you might want to have that ready to go. Okay, so today we're going to be adding and subtracting rational numbers. That means fractions and decimals. Okay, so fractions and decimals. Okay, so Basharo ate 1/2 of a cheese pizza. All right, so if I think of 1/2, and then Elise ate 3/5 of a pizza, and Lizbeth ate 5/8 of a pizza. I want to know who ate the most. So I want to think if they were cut into the same amount of pieces. So I'm going to first think, what does 5 and 8 both go, or if I think of 1/2 and 5/8, if I multiply this by 2 or by 4, I can't talk today, oh man. 1 times 4 is 4, and 2 times 4 is 8. So if I got 4/8 and 5/8, 5/8 is bigger because there's 5 of the pieces. This one's only 4 of the pieces. So Basharo did not eat the most. Okay, same idea with 3/5 and 5/8. I want to make it so that we have the same denominator. So we're talking about the same number of pieces. So I'm just going to multiply this by 8. So 3 times 8 is 24. 5 times 8 is 40. So if there's just 40 pieces, Elise would have eaten 24 pieces. I'll multiply this one by 5. That way I get that bottom to be 40. And 5 times 5 is 25. So if both of these pieces were cut into 40 pieces, this one would have eaten 24 pieces, and Lizbeth would have eaten 25 pieces. So Lizbeth definitely ate the most. Okay. All right, going on to the next problem. We're going to evaluate this expression, 2/7 plus -3/4. So we're going to use our Desmos calculator, and we are going to use the dividing button for the fractions, or we can use the fraction button. Either way works. But we do want our answer to be a fraction. All right, so at this point, go to your Desmos calculator. We're going to do 2/7. So I'm going to do the fraction, and on top is 2. I can click to the bottom, 7. And then I want to click over, plus, negative, so I'm going to use the minus sign. And then I think it was 3/4, right? 3/4. Let's just double check that. I wasn't quite sure. Yep, 3/4. Okay, and it shows us as a decimal. I don't want a decimal though because I had fraction problems, so I want my answer to be a fraction, so I can click this button right here. So if I click that, it tells me my answer, -13/28. So my answer is -13/28. Done. Okay, number 2, we're going to evaluate the expression. So when we put this into Desmos, when we do 2 and 1/6, I want to put a space between 2 and the 1/6. Okay. Again, we have both fractions, so we want to make sure our answer is a fraction. Okay, so 2 and 1/6 minus 5 and 3/8. So I can hit enter, and then it's right there. So 2, and then I want to put in a space. I'm actually going to use my keyboard to put a space, and then a fraction, 1/6, and then what was it? Minus 5 and 3/8. Whoops. Minus 5 space, and then a fraction, 3 on top, 8 on bottom. And then we can go ahead and make that into a fraction, and I have -77/24. Now this is an improper fraction because the top number is bigger than the bottom number. So we're going to divide the numerator, the top number, by the denominator, which is the bottom number. Okay. I'm going to do 77 divided by 24. Again, I'm just going to use my decimals to do that. So 77 divided by 24, it goes in there 3 whole times. Okay, so here would go 3. Then I actually want to know what is 3 times 24. And if I don't know, I can use my decimals calculator. So 3 times 24 is 72. So I would subtract 72. And 7 minus 2 is 5. 7 minus 7 is 0. So my final answer would be negative, because it was negative up here. 3 is my whole number. I have 5 left over, that's my remainder, over my denominator, which is 24. What was I dividing by? So 5 24s. And I can't simplify, so that's my final answer. All right, next page. I need to delete this real quick because this didn't work. All right, we have 2 more problems. This one, we're going to evaluate this expression. If we're doing it by hand, we need to make sure we're lining up decimal points. I have a positive and a negative, so we'd end up subtracting. So if you would like to do it by hand, you can. Some people really enjoy that, so I would subtract 3 and 9/10. So I would put a 0 here, and then I would subtract. Because they're decimals, our answer should be written as a decimal. We can use decimals though, so 3 and 9/10. So 3 and 9/10 minus, or plus negative 12 and 31/100. So I'm going to delete using this, plus negative 12 and 91/100. I don't think that was right. 31/100. 31/100. And that's negative 1 and 84/100. I could make it into a fraction, but we don't need to because it was just decimals. So negative 8 and 41/100 is my final answer. And that would be right because I have more negatives, so I want to make sure that it makes sense. I have 12 negatives, I only have 3 positives, so it should be negative. Okay, last one. Here I have a fraction and a decimal. So if I have a fraction and a decimal, I do want my answer to be written as a decimal. Okay, so 2 and 3/5 minus 2 and 84/100. 2 and 3/5 minus 2 and 84/100. So we'd use our decimals. So 2 and 3/5, so space, fraction, 3 over 5. And I can use my keyboard for this as well. Minus 2 and 84/100. And our answer would be negative 0 and 24/100. Done. Okay, how do I know if my answer should be a fraction or a decimal? So if it's all fractions, our answer should be a fraction. It's all decimals, our answer should be a decimal. And if it's fractions and decimals, we can write our answer as a decimal.